how much progress you have done with Russian side today?
Well, Ukrainian side is always ready for ceasefire discussions, and it was actually initiated by the American side after by President Trump. As you know, we had first meetings in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We had meetings in Paris, in London, 2 times in Turkey. This is the 3rd time, and we will always prioritizing the ceasefire. At the moment, it is not up to us. I think the world should be supporting Ukraine for ceasefire. We are ready to do it. It is the Russian side who is not agreeing on it.
I'm Jared Mousen with the Wall Street Journal. Thank you for your time. Do I understand you correctly that this could be the last meeting in this format, and that unless Russia agrees to a meeting of the 2 leaders or there's a meeting on the humanitarian track, that this format won't continue?
It's the first question. It's the first time I hear it. So we never have told anything like this. We always said that the initiative of President Trump is supported. We had many meetings, already 6 months passed since this initiative. We have progress on humanitarian track. There is no progress on cessation of hostilities or ceasefire. And we are trying to work on the priorities. Our priority is always people, ceasefire, and a meeting of leaders. That's what we are focused on at the moment.
Natalia Fibrik, Ukrainian TV channel 1+1. Thank you for this possibility. Could you? This meeting actually lasted only 35 minutes. Why so extremely short? And maybe you can elaborate if you had some meeting with Mr. Medinsky before this general meeting, and maybe you noticed some kind of another attitude of Russian delegation this time. And have you talked about memorandums actually?
First of all, we always have meetings simultaneously with all the colleagues responsible for each track: humanitarian track, political track, the cessation of hostilities track, the ceasefire. So at this stage, as I said, we were working. We started, I think, if I'm not mistaken, after 6, and we just finished. So I think we were working all this time on these 3 important questions. For one question, we have a result. For other 2, they're pending.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will let our delegation go because they are out of time, but I will stay with you for some few more minutes because I understand there are more questions, so I'm ready to stay with you and answer some of them. So who still wanted? Okay, let's start with Ukrinform. Others think about it.
Thank you. Olga Budnik, Ukrinform. I have a question about position and the atmosphere of this conversation today, because last time when a Russian delegation represented their memorandum, it was clear that it's impossible to achieve this middle point. And what was about this? Was it constructive, unconstructive, the position of Russians? And do you see the light in the end of corridor?
I asked our members of the delegation about the atmosphere in the room, and they told me that the atmosphere was a little different from the previous meetings. There were less, I would say, emotions or, let's say, lyrical parts, and more of a restrained, constructive, and calm conversation, let's say. But obviously, sides underlined, underscored their own positions. But it's just about the atmosphere that was a bit, more down to earth, let's call it this way. Anyone else? Okay, yes, the man there.
Matt Cengiz from Cumhuriyet newspaper. You already have shared your memorandums on, and what was your response? And what was their response to yours? And should we expect any concrete result, even if it's a limited one, soon?
So, first of all, let's clarify. We think it's a little bit incorrect to call the documents memorandums, and this is the way Russians call it. Why? Because memorandum is supposed to be a document that is agreed by two sides, and I think this is their strategy to call it a memorandum. We think these are drafts. Sorry for being boring, but I think it's just like it's necessary to clarify the terms. So these are draft proposals or visions for the peace process. Both documents have been in the press for quite a long time, and actually the public is able to, make their own judgment about these documents. I encourage everyone to Google it if you haven't yet, and see that the Ukrainian memorandum is actually very logical. It's very constructive. It doesn't propose anything outside of the, of the world, of the spectrum that can be done. It's all very doable and rational. When you look at the Russian memorandum, it's packed with ultimatums, with some maximalist, statements and demands. So the two documents, the two drafts, are very different in nature. That's the first thing that it's important to say. And for Ukraine, the principled position is that we need to have a ceasefire, and we think it's logical. You need guns to be silent so that diplomats can talk. This is very simple. And if we had a full ceasefire, then of course the diplomacy would be much, much more effective. Because when the terror continues, and unfortunately since last meeting in June, we only saw Russia escalate attacks against Ukrainian civilians. This is true. This is true to say. So, again, on the nature of the documents, yes, they are very far away, this is true, but it's also important to mention that the Ukrainian document is doable, while Russian one is very, very far away. Let's go to the next one. Yeah? Anyone else? Maybe of the foreign press. Yes, you, behind there. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your time. Sophia Yan with the Daily Telegraph. Is there a deadline for President Zelensky's suggestion to meet with his Russian counterpart? If the meeting in August doesn't happen, would he extend that invitation again?
This is an active and ongoing proposal which can be put into effect at any moment of time. If Putin comes out tomorrow and says, I'm ready to meet with President Zelensky will be ready to meet with him tomorrow. This is, I think, the answer to your question about the deadline. Why we are insisting on the meeting of the leaders? Because obviously we understand in Russia there is one person who takes decisions. And if we want big decisions such as a ceasefire or other decisions, of course we need this person in the room. And why is it so hard to just sit and talk? We do not understand this. President Zelensky is ready. He's ready to sit down and talk with Putin. Why is it so difficult for Putin to show up and meet with President Zelensky? But this is an open question. I think it needs to be directed to the Kremlin. Yes.
Adrian Rocha, France 24. If this Putin between Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Putin doesn't happen, as you say, the only way of moving forward is a meeting between leaders. Do you think that the format that you're following through here in Turkey has a deadline or a dead end?
Look, I will put it very simply. Ukraine is the country that suffers the most from this brutal war. Every day we endure strikes, we endure casualties, we endure losses of civilians, losses of military personnel. We are the country that is most interested in achieving peace, and we want this war to end. We never wanted this war to start in the first place. This is why we will use every opportunity, even the smallest one, to try to advance peace and try to achieve peace, a just peace, of course. And this is why we are showing up here in this format on a very high level, by the way. It's the head of the National Security and Defense Council. It's higher than the Russian side. And the reason for that is that because Ukraine is trying to use, and get an advantage of even the smallest opportunity to advance something, even if it's about resolving the humanitarian issues, then fine, we will try to do this because it's about our people, it's about exchanges of prisoners of war who are still in captivity, about the release of civilians. And by the way, I want to underline that so that no one manipulates this issue. We are talking about exchanges of prisoners of war and the release of civilians. This is very important to say. It's a very important nuance to to underline. So, again, about this format, yes, we understand that at the moment this format is showing results on the humanitarian track and shows very little progress on the political track. The reason for that is, there is only one reason for that, it's Russia's unwillingness to get the progress on the political track, but even if it's about humanitarian track, Ukraine will keep this effort going. Okay, yes, to you, sir, and then behind there. I see there is, the appetite is growing, which is good, but I will have to go at some point. Yes.
Thank you for your time, Hong Kong Phoenix TV. I just want to ask, before this negotiation, we know Ukraine side and the Russian side, they cannot agree on the common point to negotiate continuously. So this time, is there anything has changed on the condition of the Ukraine side to negotiate continuously?
Can you clarify what do you mean by the conditions?
Before the last two times, because the Ukraine side and the Russian side cannot agree on the ceasefire because their conditions of the ceasefires are different, and they insist on their own conditions. So, but we now can see that Ukraine is eager for the ceasefire. So, has there anything has changed to realize the ceasefire?
Okay, I got it. This is not entirely correct, and it's good that you asked this because it allows me to clarify that Ukraine actually does not a single condition for a ceasefire. Ukraine has 0 conditions for a ceasefire. If Russia says now we are ready for a ceasefire, then the ceasefire will start because Ukraine made it clear on March 11th, if I'm not wrong. So we are 4.5 months that Ukraine agreed to a full ceasefire. For 30 days, but 60 days, 90 days, 100 days, we're ready for a longer time, without any single precondition. Tomorrow, Russia agrees, and we start a ceasefire. But unfortunately, Russia rejects this idea of a ceasefire. Why? You need to ask Moscow. For us, it's unclear why, because for everyone, I don't know, reporter in this world who covered various conflicts around the world, it's clear that you start with a ceasefire, and then you go to serious peace negotiations. We are ready for that, and we want to start serious peace negotiations in the conditions of a ceasefire. This is logical. But you need to ask Moscow why they keep rejecting it. For us, it's illogical. I promised to the man there, but then we'll go to you.
Hi, from Euronews, Burak Ütücü. Do you expect the U.S. President Donald Trump's support to increase further in the near future?
Okay, we're getting away from the topic of the negotiations between the Ukrainian-Russian delegation. You know that the Ukrainian-American dialogue is continuing. Presidents Zelensky and Trump, they are in contact, and there have been some serious developments on this track. You heard some positive signals from President Trump regarding Patriot systems and missiles, some of the capabilities to help Ukraine defend its sky better, defend its civilians. We welcome these signals. We're looking forward to finding ways to purchase those systems, maybe together with our partners. So this is an ongoing track. Yes, we count that this support will continue, as well as pressure on Russia, of course. And we need to make it clear that pressure does not exclude negotiations and peace. The peace effort and peace process and pressure on Moscow go hand in hand. They do not contradict each other. Actually, the more pressure is there on Moscow, we think, the more constructive Moscow will become. Yes, colleague here. Sorry, I will make you run a few more times today. Yes.
Bartan Ali from Euronews Agency. You were talking about we should ask the Russian side about the ceasefire conditions. But I'm sure you have asked this question to the necessary people in this meeting. What did you get as an answer?
Well, they made it clear publicly. You don't need to even ask them in the meeting. On the very high levels, like speakers of President of Russia and some other speakers, they made it clear. They said something. I'm not sure it will be word to word, but they say something like, "We are advancing. Why should we have a ceasefire?" Which is a cynical, a brutal statement to make, basically rejecting the peace effort. And that's. We don't think they are winning the war. Actually, if you look at the broader picture, Russia has not achieved a single strategic goal in Ukraine in 3.5 years, actually. For example, Russia occupied in 2014, Russia occupied 3 Ukrainian regional centers. Ukraine has 25 regional centers, so 3 of them were occupied in 2014, and now 3 are still occupied. They have not occupied a single additional regional center. So there was Kherson, but Ukraine liberated it. So we think that if you look at the broader picture, it's incorrect to say that Russia is winning and Ukraine is losing this war. This is simply not something corresponding with the facts. Although this is, it's extremely difficult for our forces. I don't want to paint, a bright picture. This is extremely, they are pushing back against a huge army, a very difficult adversary. So it's a very, very difficult situation for us, of course. But you need to, pay tribute to the heroism and the bravery of Ukrainian soldiers who are, pushing back this enormous force. Yes, I promised to you, I think. Yes.
Vitaly Shevchenko, BBC. Since we're talking about ceasefires a lot tonight, Russian media are reporting just now, they're quoting Vladimir Medinsky, who is saying that Russia proposed shorter humanitarian ceasefires, lasting 24 or 48 hours to collect the bodies of fallen soldiers and recover the wounded. Can you confirm that this is something Ukraine has agreed to, or whether this is a way forward, possibly?
So this is not new. We heard this from them even on the previous meeting here at this place in Istanbul. And also, during the previous 3-4 months, we heard various ideas from Russia. They had this Easter ceasefire, then the victory, the 9th of May ceasefire. Then they proposed this short humanitarian ceasefire. This is not really a genuine ceasefire. So if we are talking about humanitarian pauses on some local places on the front line, you need to understand that this is something that is already happening from time to time. When local commanders agree, Ukrainian and Russian commanders, very local, like low level, they agree that, okay, let's collect the bodies of the fallen soldiers, for example, and let's have a short humanitarian pause. This is not a ceasefire. This is a humanitarian pause. So for us, it's surprising to see that Russians are trying to sell this as a kind of a ceasefire. In our understanding, a full ceasefire. And by the way, Ukraine's foreign minister, Andriy Sybiha, said this, formulated this many times. The full ceasefire is a ceasefire on the land, sea, and in the air. So complete succession of hostilities. And this is what you call a ceasefire. When bombs do not fall on the civilian, residential areas and civilian critical infrastructure, then you can talk. Because otherwise, how is this supposed to look? The two delegations meet, and then the bombs fall on the Ukrainian city, and how does this diplomacy advance? So again, this is very logical to have a full ceasefire. And these humanitarian pauses, this is something that is already happening, and this cannot be called a genuine and full ceasefire. Okay, let's take a few last ones. The ones I missed, okay, you, and then someone else, and I will be going, okay?
Before the meeting in Istanbul, Mr. Yermak and Mr. Umerov had a meeting with President Erdogan in Ankara. What was the aim of the meeting and which messages Ukrainian delegations brought to the table?
This was a very important meeting with a person who holds a lot of opportunity in his hands to solve issues. And we really appreciate President Erdogan's leadership, his strengths, his resolute commitment to norms that we all share, to Ukraine's territorial integrity. And we think that his role in various peace formats and efforts is very valuable. We remember how President Erdogan helped facilitate the Black Sea grain deal, for example, and it worked. It helped in the first year of this brutal war, helped restore the maritime trade and grain supply. We see how much effort and time he invests now into trying to, advance the peace process. We are grateful to President Erdogan, to Turkey, for these efforts, for providing this excellent platform for dialogue. Turkey did something that no one else could do, and this is highly appreciated. On this meeting, they had a very friendly and constructive conversation about the way forward, the peace, the ways to achieve and advance a just peace. And we are grateful for President Erdogan for his ideas, for his vision. Yes. Okay, you have already asked, but if no one else wants, then we can take your question as the last one, and I will go. And I take this as an evidence that probably I covered all of your questions that are interesting to you. Yes.
Thank you. Just to be 100% sure about something Mr. Omarov said, the 1,200 prisoners that were exchanged, was he referring to the previous prisoner exchange?
Yes, he was talking about something that we have already been able to achieve, proving that this format allows to advance some humanitarian issues, and this is very important. So Rustem Umerov was talking about the progress that has already been achieved. And then today, yes, there were also agreements on further exchanges, that they will continue. This is important. This is also a humanitarian result. But more details will follow, not here, not now. You will see them. It's just to flag that this process is ongoing. Okay, thank you all a lot. I hope we covered everything, and we'll be happy to see you again. Thank you.